Thank you. I'll now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Thank you all for being here today, first of all, to address the worst border crisis our nation has ever seen. The chaos we continue to see at the border didn't just materialize out of thin air. It's fueled by 3 years of misguided policies from this administration and the refusal to enforce the laws we have in place. The numbers speak for themselves. Over 8 million illegal crossings, thousands of pounds of fentanyl pouring into our communities, and hundreds of individuals on the terrorist watch list apprehended, trying to take advantage of this administration's failure to act. Mexican cartels and Chinese fentanyl manufacturers are making billions in profits, while Americans are losing family, friends, and loved ones in record numbers to the fentanyl epidemic. My home state of Kansas has seen a 73% increase in fentanyl overdoses, the highest in America. It's hard to find a community in my district that hasn't been impacted by fentanyl, and when I talk to local law enforcement, it's clear that the epidemic is getting worse every day. It's past time to restore the rule of law, secure our borders, and implement solutions to crack down on fentanyl traffickers. That's why I supported H.R. 2, common sense legislation passed by House Republicans to restart construction of the wall, provide more resources to our Border Patrol agents, and end failed Democrat policies that continue to incentivize mass migration. The truth is that a country without borders is not a country at all. President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas turn a blind eye to the invasion at the southern border and have failed to protect American families and communities. We have no choice but to find new leadership at the Department of Homeland Security. I want to thank the witnesses again for being here today and look forward to our discussion. Mr. Homan, appreciate you being here and appreciate all the work that you've done. In your testimony, you stated that more Americans are dying from fentanyl poisoning than ever, over 112,000, as the drug is pushed across our southern border. From your experience, what inadequacies do you see in the current administration's approach to addressing the rise in fentanyl? If you could focus on fentanyl specifically.
Well, more fentanyl is getting into the country because the Border Patrol is overwhelmed. We got record numbers, as you said, 8 million encounters across the southwest border. I have been to the southern border a dozen times. On average, over 70% of agents are pulled off the line to process this humanitarian issue. I've seen sectors in the last few months where every single Border Patrol agent in that sector is pulled off the line, which leaves hundreds of miles of border open. The criminal cartels in Mexico, let me be clear, have operational control of our southern border. They decide what comes across, where it comes across, and who comes across, and what comes across. Because they'll create gaps. They'll send a big group of illegal aliens in one sector to take whatever few Border Patrol agents are left on patrol to seize to that event, because these people are in bad shape. We got a humanitarian issue we have to deal with. And they create gaps in the system. That's when they push the fentanyl and the trafficking of women and children, and the gang members that don't want to turn themselves in. That's why we have 1.9 million known gotaways.
And how would, I mentioned H.R. 2, how would the passage of H.R. 2 into law make a difference?
Because it takes into account a lot of the Trump policies, which were proven effective. That's not my opinion, and we can talk about raw data. I mean, I've been hearing these numbers being thrown around. You can cherry pick the number as much as you want. If you're going to argue that the border is more secure under this president than under President Trump, it's a fallacy. It's not true.
Will you quickly address the job that you think Secretary Mayorkas is doing?
It's terrible. And let me say this. Secretary Mayorkas was a deputy secretary in 2014, 2015 under President Obama. Joe Biden was vice president. We had a family surge at the time. How did we address it? We built family centers, residential centers. We built detention facilities. We made them see a judge. And when they're detention, they see a judge within 35 to 40 days, so they're not in detention long. Most of them lost their case. We put them on an airplane and sent them home. And it worked. The numbers dropped. What is he doing now? He's not detaining them. They're being released with no judge appointment, many of them, and he's not removing them. 5% of what they removed last year was a non-criminal border entrant, which shows if there's no consequence, if you're not going to remove them, they're going to keep coming.
Yeah. Mr. Edlow, how many green cards are issued every year?
The exact number escapes me, Congressman, but essentially Congress has prescribed that there's a certain number, a limit per family-based, also employment-based, and then another 50,000 or so for diversity. So it's about 800,000 to 1 million. I just cannot remember the exact number.
Yeah, and does our immigration system Is it closed down, as was alluded to? Is nothing happening?
No, there's
Speak to
plenty.
that very briefly.
There's plenty happening. The visa bulletin is something that explains kind of where we assume things are in the pipeline, given the limitations that Congress has put on the yearly number of visas that can be issued. Those numbers do get played with, though, so, from 1 month to the next, there are long wait times. I'm not going to sit here and deny long wait times for certain categories, but from one month to the next, those dates do vary kind of significantly.
Thank you very much, and again, thanks for being here today. The chair recognizes